Once upon a time, in a peaceful little village called Umunnachi, people lived there and loved each other like family. Umunnachi was a beautiful village. It sat quietly between soft green hills, with tall palm trees dancing in the wind and a gentle river that sang as it flowed. The air always smelled fresh, like rain had just washed it clean. The people of Umunnachi were simple and kind. They shared what they had, helped one another, and greeted everyone with a smile. Life in the village was calm. Children ran around barefoot, laughing and chasing each other under the sun. The women cooked outside, their pots bubbling with sweet-smelling soups. The men worked on their farms, strong and proud, coming home with baskets full of yams and fresh vegetables. But what made Umunnachi really special were its young girls. The maidens of the village were known far and wide for their beauty. Their skin glowed like honey, their eyes sparkled like morning dew, and their laughter made even strangers smile. Travelers would pass through just to look at them. Some would say, "There is no place like Umunnachi. Even the moon comes out early just to watch the girls walk by." Every morning the village woke up to the sound of birds singing, and every evening the drums began to beat slowly, calling the people to gather and share stories. There was peace, there was joy, and there was love in every corner of Umunnachi. It was in this sweet village full of laughter and light that a little girl named Angel was brought to live. Angel was just 6 years old when her world turned upside down. She used to laugh a lot. She would sing as she ran through the bush paths, following her father as he tapped fresh palm wine from the tallest trees. Her father was well known in Obinagu. People called him Odogwunku, the great palm wine tapper. His arms were strong, his smile was warm, and he always brought home sweet, foamy wine that made the village elders clap their hands in joy. But one morning, everything changed. Angel's father had gone out early as usual, climbing high into the tallest palm. No one knows exactly how it happened, but they said the rope snapped. He fell hard, and he didn't get up. Angel sat quietly under the mango tree when they brought the news. Her mother held her tightly that night. She didn't cry much, but her eyes never looked the same again. Not long after, her mother fell sick. It started with tiredness, then deep coughing. She tried to fight it, but the sickness was strong. The village women did all they could, but nothing worked. And one rainy evening, with Angel holding her hand, she closed her eyes and never opened them again. Angel was now alone. The villagers gathered and whispered. She was too small to stay by herself. So her mother's younger sister, Auntie Rose, who lived in the peaceful village of Umunnachi, came for her. "Angel will come and live with me," Rose had said, hugging her tightly. "She's my blood." So Angel left Obinagu and moved to Umunnachi, hoping that her life would be better. At first, everything felt warm. Auntie Rose gave her a new wrapper and made her sweet pap with honey. Her husband, Uncle Dan, smiled gently and rubbed Angel's head. "Angel, you're safe here," he said softly. "This house is your house." Rose and Dan had been married for 10 years without a child. So when Angel arrived, it was as if their home suddenly found laughter again. Uncle Dan would bring her roasted plantain from the market. Auntie Rose would braid her hair and call her my daughter. Angel missed her parents, but her heart was soft. She was happy to be loved again. She helped Auntie Rose sweep the compound. She sang again. She smiled more. And each night, as she closed her eyes to sleep, she whispered, "Thank you, God, for giving me another home." But even as she smiled, no one could have guessed how fast things would change. Not long after Angel came to live in Umunnachi, something happened. One morning, Auntie Rose began to feel strange. She would sleep longer, wake up tired, and sometimes throw up in the bush. At first, she thought it was just too much pepper. But then, one afternoon, she sat on the wooden bench and placed a hand on her chest. "Dan," she said softly, "I think something is growing inside me." Uncle Dan looked at her, then at Angel, then back at her. His eyes grew wide. "You mean, Rose, are you?" She nodded slowly. Tears filled Uncle Dan's eyes. After 10 years, 10 long years of waiting, praying, and hoping, he held Rose's hands tightly. Angel watched them from the corner, not really sure what was going on. Uncle Dan turned to her with the biggest smile. "Angel," he said, lifting her gently into his arms. "You are truly an angel. Since you came into this house, joy entered with you." They all laughed that evening. Auntie Rose made hot rice with pepper stew. They danced around the small compound as if the moon was smiling just for them. Months passed. Then one morning, the cries of a newborn filled the air. Auntie Rose had given birth to a baby girl. They named her Bella. The village women came to rejoice with them. "God has done it," they shouted. The baby was wrapped in soft cloth, her tiny fingers curled like a blessing. At first, everything seemed fine. Angel would carry little Bella gently and sing her to sleep. Auntie Rose would smile, sometimes even calling both girls her little queens. But slowly, something began to change. Auntie Rose started snapping at Angel over small things. "Why is this place still dirty? Didn't I tell you to wash Bella's clothes first? You want to spoil my baby's dress with your rough hands?" Angel would bow her head and whisper, "I'm sorry, Auntie," even when she had done nothing wrong. She did everything now, sweeping, washing, cooking, fetching water from the stream. Morning till night, her hands were always busy. Bella, on the other hand, was never touched. She was always carried, pampered, and praised. Auntie Rose would call her my golden child. Even when Bella scattered the food or threw sand into the pot, Auntie Rose would laugh and say, "She's just a baby." Angel was no longer allowed to play. She didn't laugh much anymore. Her feet were always dusty, her eyes tired. Yet she said nothing. She just wanted peace. Only Uncle Dan noticed. He would call her sometimes and say, "Angel, you're trying. You have a good heart." He would slip roasted groundnuts into her hand and pat her back gently. But then, something even harder happened. Uncle Dan began to cough. At first they thought it was nothing, but the cough grew deeper. He started staying in bed too weak to talk. Auntie Rose was too busy with Bella to notice. Angel tried her best to care for him, bringing water, cleaning his mat, sitting beside him when he couldn't sleep. One evening, as the sun set gently behind the hills, Uncle Dan called Angel close. "Thank you," he whispered, his voice like the wind. "Never stop being kind." And then, he closed his eyes. Angel sat beside him, holding his cold hand, tears falling silently. That night the house grew quiet, very quiet. And the only sound Angel could hear was her own heart, breaking slowly, piece by piece. After Uncle Dan passed away, Angel's world changed completely. The warm smile that used to welcome her at the door was gone. The quiet hand that would pat her back and whisper, "You're trying," was no more. And without him, no one was left to protect her. Now the house felt like a place without light. Auntie Rose changed. Her voice became sharper. Her face always looked angry. Even the way she looked at Angel was different, cold, and full of something hard to explain. Angel couldn't remember the last time Auntie Rose smiled at her. Each day became harder than the one before. Angel woke up very early, even before the cock crowed. While the sky was still dark, she would carry the iron bucket to the stream. Her small feet walked the bush path with tired steps. By the time she returned, her dress was wet with sweat and her hands shaking. "Where have you been?" Auntie Rose would shout. "Lazy girl, do you think this house will clean itself?" Angel didn't answer. She just dropped the bucket and picked up the broom. She swept the compound, washed Bella's clothes, fetched firewood, pounded yams, cleaned the kitchen, cooked the food, and washed the plates. All before noon. At night, while Bella was being fanned under a wrapper and given warm soup, Angel would sit in a corner, eating cold leftovers, if there was any. Most times it wasn't enough. Just a spoonful of rice or a piece of yam with no oil. Her stomach would growl in the dark, but she said nothing. She slept on a thin mat beside the kitchen with one wrapper over her legs. The nights were cold and the mosquitoes didn't care that she was tired. Sometimes, over small mistakes, like forgetting to boil water or not sweeping a corner properly, Auntie Rose would beat her with broomsticks or slap her hard across the face. Angel would bite her lips, trying not to cry. Tears only made it worse. Yet, through it all, she didn't stop being kind. She still greeted the old women in the market. She helped Mama Ifeoma lift her basket. She smiled at children and gave them firewood when they ran out. Her hands were rough, but her heart was still soft. People began to notice. "Poor girl," the market women would whisper as Angel passed, her wrapper barely holding around her tiny waist. "Living with the lioness." They called Auntie Rose the lioness, no tea to her face, but behind closed doors. Her loud mouth could scatter a market, and her violent outbursts could make even grown men shake. But no one dared question her, not even the elders. They were afraid of her anger, her tongue, her fire. So Angel suffered in silence. Each day she prayed for morning to come quickly, and each night she thanked God for keeping her alive. Just one more day. She held on to hope like a little flame in the middle of a storm. And deep inside her, she believed. Maybe, just maybe, something better was still waiting. As the years passed, Bella grew. She was no longer the baby wrapped in soft cloth. She had become a young woman with smooth skin, long eyelashes, and a proud face that always looked like it was waiting for someone to admire it. Auntie Rose doted on her day and night. "My princess," she would call her, rubbing cream into Bella's feet as she lay on a mat in the shade. "Rest, my jewel. Let the house girl do the work." That house girl was Angel. Angel had grown too. Despite the hardship, she had grown into a beautiful young woman. She had an innocent beauty that wasn't flashy but calm. Her palms were hard. Her clothes always hung loosely on her thin frame. But her voice stayed soft, her spirit still gentle. While Bella slept late and sat for hours in front of the small mirror Uncle Dan once bought from the neighboring village, Angel was already awake, sweeping the compound and fetching water. She cleaned the house, cooked the meals, and washed every single piece of clothing Bella touched. Sometimes Bella would stretch lazily and say, "Angel, is my hot water ready? Don't forget I want fried plantain today." And Angel would say, "Yes, Bella," bowing slightly before running off to the kitchen. She never complained, not once. Bella, with her polished nails and glittering earrings, refused to lift a finger. "I wasn't made for stress," she would often say. "I am a princess." Auntie Rose would laugh and clap. "Yes, my darling, you are royalty. You were born to be served, not to suffer like some people." Angel would hear those words. Sometimes they hurt like small stones hitting her chest, but she said nothing. She just tightened her wrapper and carried on. Even when her legs ached or her fingers burned from the hot pot, she still answered with the same quiet voice. "Yes, Auntie. Yes, Bella." Bella never called her by name anymore. Sometimes she just snapped her fingers or said, "You, come here." Angel would come, with her head slightly bowed and her hands always busy. In that house, Bella shone like a diamond. And Angel, the girl who once brought joy into their lives, now lived like a shadow, fading softly behind the pride and praise that followed her cousins every step. This continued until one fateful morning. The sun rose early that morning, brighter than usual, as if it knew what day it was. It was the Yam Festival, one of the biggest days in Umunnachi. Every year, people from nearby villages would travel down to witness the celebration. But it wasn't just about yams. It was also the day when all the maidens of Umunnachi came out to showcase themselves, dressed in their finest, walking with grace, their heads held high. It was a day when young men came in numbers, eyes wide, hoping to find a wife among the village's most beautiful daughters. The entire village buzzed with excitement. Drums beat softly in the background. Mothers prepared their daughters. Girls giggled as they braided each other's hair and dusted powder onto their cheeks. In the middle of it all, inside a small room with a wooden mirror, Bella stood tall. Auntie Rose wrapped her in a golden-trimmed cloth that shimmered when the light touched it. She rubbed Bella's skin with oil, brushed her hair carefully, and placed beads around her neck and wrists. "You look like a queen," she said proudly. "Any man who sees you today will fall at your feet." Bella smirked and twirled in front of the mirror. They better come with gold, Mama. I'm not leaving this house for just any ordinary man. Auntie Rose laughed loudly. Don't worry, my child. Today is your day. In the corner, Angel quietly took a wrapper from the line and tried to tie it around her waist. It was old, but she had washed it neatly. She picked a tiny comb and tried to part her hair. Maybe, just maybe, she could walk down to the square and stand by the side. Not to show off, just to watch, just to feel like a girl, even for one day. But just as she was about to step outside, Auntie Rose's voice rang out like thunder. Angel, where do you think you're going? Angel froze. I just wanted to... Didn't I say go wash the clothes? Rose barked. And who gave you permission to tie that wrapper? Put it down now and get to work. Angel swallowed hard and nodded. Yes, Auntie. She went back inside and changed quickly. That wrapper wasn't for her, not today. Instead of the village square, Angel went to the backyard. She fetched water, she scrubbed pots, she washed all of Bella's clothes and laid them out to dry. When she looked up, she saw Bella walking away with her head high, hips swaying, the golden cloth catching the sunlight like fire. Angel watched quietly from behind the wall. She didn't cry. She just picked up the next set of plates and continued washing, as Auntie Rose stood nearby, arms folded, making sure not a single moment was wasted. The village danced, music filled the air, girls laughed, boys stared. But in a small compound on the edge of Umunaki, a young girl scrubbed and swept, her beauty unseen, her heart quietly shining where no one could see. The Yam Festival ended with dancing and laughter that echoed through the hills of Umunaki. By the next morning, word had already spread beyond the village. Bella, the girl in gold, was the star of the festival. Her name rolled off tongues like music. Men from near and far came knocking, asking for her hand in marriage. They brought gifts, goats, yams, palm oil and cloth. Some came with horses, some with money, but one by one Bella turned them all away. Is he a prince? She would ask, raising her brow. No, they would answer, heads bowed. Then I'm not interested, she would say, waving her hand like a queen. Auntie Rose always stood behind her, smiling proudly. My daughter is special, she would say. She was born to marry royalty. Not just any man will touch her hand. The visits continued, but so did the insults. One morning, a young man came from the neighboring village of Ndulu. His name was Daniel. He wore a clean but simple wrapper, his hands rough from farming, his eyes gentle. He bowed slightly when he entered the compound. Good day, Mama. I heard about your daughter from the festival. I came to ask if I could speak with her. Bella looked at him from head to toe. Then she laughed, a loud, sharp laugh. You? A farmer, she said, covering her mouth. You want to marry me? With those cracked heels and mud hands, the dogs in this village eat better than you. Daniel stood quietly, his face calm. Bella continued, her voice louder. Look at your slippers. You can't even afford proper sandals. And your wrapper. Did you borrow it? Are you not ashamed? Auntie Rose clapped and laughed too. Did you not see the golden cloth? Go back to your farm, Biko. This one is not for you. Daniel nodded slowly, thanked them, and turned to leave. But just as he stepped out of the gate, his eyes caught something. Angel was in the corner, kneeling beside a small basin, washing clothes with tired hands. A few drops of soap water had splashed on her cheek. Her wrapper was old, her feet dusty, but her eyes, soft, kind, and full of something strong, met his for a second. And she smiled. It wasn't a big smile, just a small one, the kind that came from a quiet place deep inside. Daniel paused. Days later he returned. This time he didn't ask for Bella. He walked up to Angel gently. Please, he said, his voice low, can I speak to you? Angel looked at him confused. Me? Yes, he said, you. Auntie Rose rushed out of the house. You again? What are you doing here? Daniel stood tall. I came for Angel. I see something in her, something true. The compound went silent. Angel stood frozen, not sure if she should smile or run. And for the first time in a long while, someone truly saw her. Not as a servant, not as a shadow, but as a girl with worth. The day after Daniel came back to ask for Angel's hand, the compound shook with voices. Auntie Rose stood at the doorway, eyes wide with disbelief. "You? Marrying my maid?" she shouted, her voice rising like thunder. "Ha! Wonders shall never end." Bella stood beside her mother, fanning herself slowly with one hand and smiling with lips full of mockery. Auntie Rose didn't stop there. "You two deserve each other," she spat. "Poverty can smell poverty. What else would a poor farmer want if not a skinny housegirl with torn wrappers?" Angel stood quietly, her hands folded in front of her. She didn't look at them. She looked at the ground, then at Daniel, whose calm eyes hadn't changed. "I see you," he said gently to her, "for who you really are. And that is enough." Tears filled Angel's eyes, not from pain, but from something warm and strange feeling seen for the first time. Daniel reached for her hand. "I want a good heart," he said, "not a gold dress." Angel nodded slowly. "And I want peace, not gold that burns." The village didn't dance drums for them. There were no golden clothes, no loud music, but under a mango tree with just a few kind eyes watching, Angel and Daniel got married. He tied a new wrapper around her waist and said, "From today, you are my wife." She smiled. It was small, shy, and full of hope. But the laughter from Auntie Rose's compound carried loud across the village. "See them?" she shouted. "Two hungry birds. She didn't even get beads around her neck," Bella added in between laughter. "I heard they cooked only gari and groundnuts for the wedding." The mockery rained like stones. People heard it. Some laughed. Some turned away in shame. But Angel didn't break. After the wedding, Angel packed her few clothes into an old wrapper and followed Daniel to his village. She didn't know much about the place, just that it was called Ndulu. Daniel never said too much. He only told her, "You will be safe there." As they walked along the dusty path, Angel held onto his hand tightly. Her heart was nervous, but calm. She had never been so far from Umunnachi before, but when they got close to the village, Angel's steps slowed. The village was nothing like she had imagined. The houses were big, painted in bright colors. There were wide streets lined with trees that gave sweet shade. Children ran around happily, dressed in neat clothes. Women sold fruits in baskets that looked too beautiful to touch. The people, they didn't stare or whisper when they saw her. Instead, they bowed slightly to Daniel. "Welcome, my king," they said gently. Angel stopped walking. She looked at Daniel. "My what?" she asked, her voice barely there. Daniel smiled, not proudly, but softly. "Yes," he said. "This is my village, and I am the king." Angel blinked fast, her mouth open. "King?" she whispered. You're a king." Daniel nodded. "I didn't want you to love me for the crown I wear. I wanted you to love the man I am." Angel looked around at the village, the people, the beautiful compound they were entering. "No," she muttered, stepping back slowly. "This can't be real. This is not for someone like me." She touched her wrapper, her worn slippers. She looked down at her hands, still rough from washing and scrubbing. Daniel walked closer to her. "You are exactly where you are meant to be," he said gently. "I didn't marry a queen in gold. I married a queen at heart." Angel couldn't speak. Tears slipped quietly down her face. It was too much, too kind, too beautiful, too shocking. She placed a hand on her chest. I think I'm dreaming." Daniel held her hand again. "If it is a dream," he said with a smile, "then we will dream it together." The next morning, Angel sat quietly under a big tree in Daniel's compound, still trying to understand everything. The villagers brought her sweet palm wine, fresh fruit, and warm smiles. They called her Lolo, Queen. But in her heart, she still felt like the girl who once slept beside the kitchen. Daniel came and sat beside her. He looked at her with calm eyes, the same way he always did. "I need to tell you something," he said. Angel turned to him, listening. "I disguised myself," Daniel said softly. "I wore simple wrappers. I left my crown behind. I wanted to see if any maiden would love me for who I am, not for the gold I own or the title I carry. Angel's eyes widened. That was why you went for the festival? She asked. He nodded. I watched. I listened. They all laughed, insulted me, even called me names, all but one. He took her hand in his. You didn't ask for anything.
You followed me, not knowing where your next meal would come from. You gave me more than beauty. You gave me trust. Angel blinked away the tears building in her eyes. I don't care about all that. I only care that you see me for me, she whispered. I know, he smiled. That's why I chose you. That afternoon, the people of Ndulu gathered. Drums echoed through the hills, dancers moved in circles, and elders chanted blessings. Angel was dressed in a red velvet wrapper. Coral beads hung from her neck to her chest. A golden crown was placed gently on her head. And in front of everyone she was named Queen of Ndulu. News spread faster than the Harmattan wind. By evening, it had reached Umunaki. People couldn't believe their ears. Angel, the maid, Queen, they gasped. Women shook their heads. Young girls covered their mouths in shock. But no one was more stunned than Bella and Auntie Rose. Auntie Rose sat on her bench, speechless. Her wrapper hung loosely, her hands trembling. She's now a queen? She whispered. Bella's face turned red with anger. She stood shaking her head. No, she said sharply. No, I am more beautiful than her. I am still the real princess. I will also marry a king. One richer, one greater. I will prove to her that I am better. Auntie Rose didn't speak. She just stared at the ground, her heart heavy with regret. But Angel, she was far away now, standing tall beside Daniel, her heart full, not of pride, but of peace. For the first time, she was where she belonged, and not even gold could shine brighter than that. Back in Umunnachi, Bella could not sleep. Each time she closed her eyes, she imagined Angel sitting on a throne wearing beads, smiling softly with a golden crown resting gently on her head. The image burned her chest. She was my maid, Bella would shout to herself. How can she be queen and I am not? Every morning she sat before her mirror, adjusting her hair, painting her lips and whispering, I'm still the most beautiful. I was born to wear a crown. One day her wish seemed to come true. A stranger rode into the village with trumpets and drums. His name was Prince Chima. He arrived with fleets of servants, over 100 of them, his clothes glittering with gold, his horses strong and tall. His skin was smooth, his smile slow and charming. The village was shocked. Who was this man? I have heard of the beauty in this land, Prince Chima said, his voice deep like thunder, and I have come to choose a bride. Bella didn't wait. She rushed to wear her finest wrapper, oiled her skin until it glowed, and stepped out with her nose high. When Prince Chima saw her, he smiled. You, he said, you are the one. Bella almost fainted from joy. Auntie Rose danced around the compound. This is it, she shouted. We are going to shine brighter than Angel. Rose quickly accepted Chima's proposal for her daughter's hand in marriage. They refused to listen to the elders who warned, something about this man does not feel right. Bella and Prince Chima got married quickly, and just like that, they set out for his kingdom, followed by over 130 servants. The journey started well. Bella sat on a large horse, wearing gold and smiling proudly. Look at me now, she whispered to herself. Queen, better than Angel. But after a couple of hours, as they had traveled far from Umunnachi, something strange began to happen. One after the other, servants would go missing. Each time Bella asked, where are the others? Prince Chima would smile and say, don't worry, my queen, we are almost there. Soon, there were only a handful left. That night, as they stopped and made tents to rest, Bella couldn't sleep. The night was too quiet. The air was heavy. Then she heard whispers behind the trees. It's time to eat her, one of Prince Chima's men said in a low voice. Bella's heart jumped. Her hands shook. Her feet turned cold. She turned to Prince Chima and saw something terrifying. His smile had vanished. His face twisted. His eyes burned red. Then before her very eyes, Prince Chima turned into a beast, his teeth long and sharp, his hands clawed and wild. Bella screamed and ran, but it wasn't just Chima. All his remaining servants transformed too, their bodies stretching, fur growing, fangs appearing. They roared as they chased her through the dark forest. Bella ran like she had never run before. Her fine wrapper tore on branches, her gold earrings fell into the dust. For the first time, there was no mirror, no soft bed, no proud voice, only fear and the sound of beasts behind her. And in that moment, Bella realized she had chased after gold, but gold had chased her back as a beast. She ran through the thick forest, branches scratching her skin, her feet bleeding, her heart pounding like a drum of war. Behind her, she could still hear the heavy footsteps and growls of the beast she had once called her prince. She didn't know where she was running to. She only knew she had to survive. Just as her legs began to give up, a loud sound broke through the night, a gunshot. The growling stopped. A strong voice called out, "Stay behind me!" Through her blurred eyes, Bella saw a hunter, tall and firm, holding a long rifle. Another shot rang out, and the beasts began to retreat, melting back into the forest shadows. The hunter didn't ask questions. He helped her up, gave her water, and led her to a small hut deep in the woods. Bella collapsed on a mat and slept for the first time in days. When she woke up the next morning, she was no longer a princess. Her golden wrappers were torn, her skin was pale, her eyes were tired. She was just Bella, and she finally saw herself clearly. "I chased after a crown," she whispered to the hunter, "but I ran into a curse." He didn't say much, just nodded slowly and said, "Sometimes it takes losing everything to see what truly matters." After a few days, Bella returned to Umunnachi. But the village was not the same. As she walked in, people gasped. She was thin, broken and bent. Her steps were slow. Her head hung low. The villagers whispered, "Is that Bella? She's back. Where is her prince? What happened to her gold?" And then came the quiet voice of an old woman, sitting under the big tree near the market. "Not all that glitters is gold." Bella heard it. And this time she didn't roll her eyes. She simply nodded and kept walking. She didn't ask for her mirror. She didn't touch her beads. She sat on a wooden stool in silence. Auntie Rose was shocked when she saw her daughter. "My baby," she gasped, touching her cheeks. Bella didn't speak. That evening, Rose sat outside, staring at the sky, her heart heavy. She remembered Angel, the girl she beat, insulted and used like a servant. The same girl who now wore the real crown. Tears filled her eyes as she whispered, "I chased pride and pushed away grace." For the first time in her life, Auntie Rose felt shame. And deep in her heart, she wished she had been a better woman before it was too late. While sorrow and silence settled in Umunnachi, far away in the peaceful kingdom of Ndulu, Angel and Daniel lived in quiet joy. Their days were filled with laughter, shared meals, and gentle walks through flower-lined paths. Daniel would often say, "You are my peace," and Angel would smile, holding his hand and replying, "And you are my home." They were not the loudest rulers, nor the most decorated, but their love was deep, honest, and real. Each morning, Angel would rise early, not to scrub floors or fetch water, but to greet her people with grace. The same soft voice she once used to whisper, "Yes, Auntie," now gave kind orders that brought smiles to many. Children gathered around her. Women admired her gentleness. Men respected her wisdom. She had become the kind of queen no crown could make, but only a kind heart could shape. Back in Umunnachi, Bella watched from afar. She heard stories of how Angel walked with the poor, how she treated servants like family, how she gave gifts with her own hands. And slowly something changed inside her. She sat one day beside the same mirror she once praised herself in and whispered, "Beauty is nothing without kindness." Her eyes filled with tears, not for what she had lost, but for who she had become. Auntie Rose, now slower and grayer, could not sleep peacefully. The weight of regret sat heavy on her shoulders. One cool morning, she dressed in plain clothes and made her way to Ndulu. She carried no gifts. When she arrived, the guards were surprised, but Angel, now seated on a soft mat in the courtyard, stood gently when she saw her. Auntie Rose knelt on the floor, her voice shaking. "I did you wrong, Angel. I hurt you, I looked down on you. And yet, you became more than I ever imagined. Please, forgive me." The entire court fell silent. Angel walked slowly to her. She lifted her gently by the arms, looked into her eyes and said, "I have carried too much pain in my life. I will not carry anger either. I forgive you." Auntie Rose broke into tears. She stayed only a short while before returning to Umunnachi, her heart still heavy, but now carrying a sliver of peace. As for Bella, she never married again. The pride that once pushed love away had now left her alone with only her thoughts and memories. She remained in the house with her mother, no longer the girl in gold, but just Bella, quiet, watching, remembering. And somewhere, far from the noise, Angel sat beside Daniel, her head resting on his shoulder. She had no mirror in her room. She didn't need one, because she finally knew who she was, and that was enough.